Okay, welcome everyone. We are going to start this event in commemoration of the resilience of the people of Myanmar 2 years after the failed, what seems to be a failed coup. They've still, in spite of all the atrocities that have been committed, I think people are still fighting, and hopefully there will be change to come. Now, Junction is the place which you see is a public venue that focus on Southeast Asia, and we have, since the coup, we have been very active in bringing attention to what is happening inside Myanmar through regular updates as well as exhibitions, which you can see outside. At the moment, there is art exhibition, which again talk about standing up to the coup, so not accepting the reality of a failed coup. Today we are very honored to work together with Alliance. Wait, I have to read what the exact name. It is Alliance for Free Burma, Solidarity, and many other co-organizers. And we are also part of this alliance, which is an alliance of organization in Thailand. And here we have some of the members of that alliance, and they will be talking. So my role is really to welcome everyone here, and I will leave the word to Kunlatawan, who will be talking more about the alliance as well as who is going to be the speaker today at this event, and then I will come again at the end to close the event. So please, Kunlatawan will be online, I understand.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me? Is it okay? Is it okay now? Hello? Can you hear me well?
We can hear you.
Okay, solid. Thank you. Thank you for Junction to help organize this very important event. I think our friend in Burma following us. Actually, this day is a very crucial day. It's not because it's the 730 days has been passing, that is very fast, that the suffering of the people in Burma has been gone through. The important thing is the people in the world community help and try to see how to following, how to support, how to betterment the situation. At this for already 730 days that Junta being online has created great suffer to the Burmese people. He has killed the normal life, the growing life of the Burmese people to nightmare. I think we can't understand, we can't see how Burmese people have suffered. We will never understand how the life is going on under the civil war that's going on in Burma now. So this event is very crucial, that it's showing us not only the people in Thailand, in neighboring country, in Burmese, the Burmese people and the community, that we concern, we have attention, we like to give attention, we like to share their suffer, we like to support them. So maybe we feel that this is only panel discussion, but for me, this is show good sympathy, show good support, show good expression for the people who may have only little hope in their life at the moment. I feel very sad that we can do only little. So I think we need to do more, of course. We need to do more on the government, the Thailand government, especially that they should not go hand in hand with the junta. They should not go shaking hand. They should help with ASEAN to do more work. And that's why this kind of panel discussion is very important, that how we come together, talk, discuss, and help to come out, to have a more pressure, to have a more solution, to do more work, to help the people who are under great suffering in Burma. That's why I, on behalf of the Thai Action Committee for Democracy in Burma, with Alliance for Free Solidarity Burma, Act for Asian Cultural Forum on Development, Human Rights Watch, ASEAN Burma, and many other alliance, many other concerned human rights NGOs who like to do more work. Today, actually, they have a work, they have an event the whole day at Chiang Mai University. So we try to get more pressure, more support, a little bit step forward. I think that can help more or less to the people. So thank you for everyone who joining us and everyone who come to be our speaker, to help to make it more clear picture that what is going on and what we can do to betterment the situation in Burma. Thank you.
Okay. So thank you so much, Kun Ratawan. Even though you cannot be with us, present with us, but your spirit and your solidarity is with us always. So thank you also, Kun Lear, the Executive Director of Junction, to provide this opportunity for us to gather here. And also thanks to all of you to be here with us. Yeah. So may I introduce myself? No? My name is Buntan Tansutep Vidawong. I'm the Secretary General of the Human Rights and Development Foundations, and also the Regional Coordinator of the Asian Cultural Forum on Development, also the Chairman of the Campaign for Popular Democracy, which is the national democratic movement here sometimes. So I will take the role as the moderators for these sessions. So on the issue today, on the topics of the 2 years of atrocity under the military junta in Myanmar. Someone don't want to call it Myanmar, someone like the word Burma rather than. So that is a failure of ASEAN in international communities. It's the question whether it is the failure or what happened to all of us. So today we have the very eminent speakers to be with us present here in the room. May I introduce each of them, starting from my right hand here. Debbie Stothard from the Alternative ASEAN Network on Burma. So many of you might know her very well regarding the advocacy work she has been done in the last 25 years. So welcome, Debbie. Yes, second speakers, Ambassador Kasit Pirom. He is the member of the parliament. He was the member of parliament for some time, and also become the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Thai government 12 years ago, playing a very crucial role also as the key member of the ASEAN Parliamentarian for Human Rights for many years. So he's also very knowledgeable about what's happening internationally. It's also the question of Burma as the neighboring country. The third speaker to be with us here, Dr. Narimon Thapchumpon. She's teaching at the Chulalongkorn University Faculty of Political Science, also running so many activities, including the Solidarity Group for Burma, for Timor-Leste, and many others. She is also very important among the academic communities. Last but not least, the fourth speaker here with us is Phil Robertson. So many of you might know him. He's the Deputy Director for Asia of the Human Rights Watch. So human rights watch played a very important role also internationally in order to do advocacy work and come out with the annual report in order to reflect what is happening in different countries in the region, especially on the Burma. Recently, Human Rights Watch just came out with a very interesting report on that. So he might be able to elaborate with us what's going on on that part of the world. Actually, we have also our speakers from the Zoom. Not sure if they are already around. The first speakers from Burma is Tinsa Chunleyi. Tinsa Chunleyi, are you available with us now?
Hi, Kumpundan.
Okay.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay, yes. So Tinsa Chunleyi is the young social activist. Also played a very crucial role among the CDM movement, the civil disobedience movement, also advocating the peace and human rights in Burma. Also have some international linkages with the youth movement in the different countries, calling us the Milk Tea Arans. She will be able to join us after some time. Okay, the other speakers from Zoom is the very well-known human rights advocate, former commissioner of the National Human Rights Commission from Australia. He's also the expert on international human rights issue, being the director of one international organization called International Service for Human Rights, based in Geneva. And he became the special rapporteur, special envoy in Burma of the United Nations for some years. So at the moment, he's the core member of the SACM. SACM is Special Advisory Council on Myanmar. Played a very important role. Chris, are you with us now?
Yes,
Okay.
Buntan.
Welcome,
How are you?
Chris, from Australia, no? And all of us are listening to you. So we might be inviting you after some time. So please be with us. So
Thank you.
as we have already mentioned, that today is very crucial day for the Burma democratic movement. Throughout the last 2 years, many thousands have been killed under the atrocity of Burma. Even some report have cited more than 10,000 people lost their lives during the last 2 years under the military regime. So that is something that very, very important. At least 6 of them have been executed, as the death penalty, using the judicial court order in order to legitimize the killing of the innocent people who also playing very critical role in support the democratic movement. Some of them have been working very close to Daw Aung San Suu Kyi during her role after government administration. So at this time, may I invite our friend from Burma, Tinsa Chunleyi, to update us the situation now, both in Burma itself, also along the border. Told us the story, what is happening now. Actually, our session today, if you don't mind, I will divide into 2 parts. The first part may be focused more on the real situation, evidence, and what each of the speakers, look at the recent situation, okay? And what is the thing that we have to look at closely, how we're going to work closely. The second part, we might allocate to the time for your critical comment, especially on the plan of action, what the ASEAN have to do, what the Thai government have to do, what the international government or international organization have to do. So it's more on the plan of action or moving forward in order to resolve or addressing the very critical situation in Burma right now. So may I invite you to be the first speaker, Tinsa Chunleyi? Please, the floor is yours. So join us.
Thank you so much, Kumpundan, and thanks for organizing this. Thank you all of you for showing up in person, also joining us on this special occasion. So today I like to talk about 3 S. The first S is about the spirit of the revolution. And the second thing is about strikes and sanction, ongoing sanction. And the last S is about strategy to go forward. So today marks 731 days since the brutal coup attempt in our country. But I remind everyone that today is also the day we celebrate the undoubted spirit, relentless power, and brave resilience of the Myanmar people marching toward federal democracy. It wasn't just about all the brutalities or atrocities, and it's also about we celebrating our people's strengths. The coup attempt has awakened all of us who had almost come to accept that 2008 constitution, a constitution mainly drafted by the military and which guarantee impunity for past crime and ethnocentric hegemony. I also walked the path by the 2008 constitution when I began my career, my journey as an activist. I got to know it on the ground, also in the streets, in parliament, discussing it on TV, campaigning against it, using it to promote electoral rights, and even trying to widen its scope. I led advocacy for the first national youth policy development process in Myanmar. And in 2016, I organized the first public hearing in parliament to remove the guest registration article. And I brought villagers and administrators and grassroots activists to parliament to push for administrative reform. And after 10 years of advocacy in the 2020 election, I couldn't help but boycott it. And the 2008 constitution at its base. I did not cast my vote, and I wasn't alone. We knew too well the consequences of the path that we were walking under the military roadmap. We had a strong sense that our country should not be designed like this. We activists and students were concerned about the normalization of 2008 constitution. We knew that it would not lead us to where we needed to go. In February 12, this February 12, it will mark 76th anniversary of the Penlong Agreement and the Union Day. Yet, I would say we're not a union yet. We haven't finished the nation building process. Every year, that Penlong Agreement, that Penlong anniversary, that Union Day, Tirangzune, remind us of our unfinished work. It also inspires us to keep marching towards our real goal of federal democracy. The goal of our revolution can no longer be the naive dream of oneness. From now on, I think we must appreciate that Myanmar's diversity, and we must live in harmony as a federal state. We don't need to be just one to fight the Junta. We can be ourselves and keep our unique identities. That's who we are, and that's our strength. I like to honor the fallen heroes in the struggle for federal democracy since our independence, and I would like to salute all of you here now who are against all forms of discrimination and injustice. I know that some of you have been working for Myanmar cause since before I was born. We from the next generations really admire this, and we hope that we can live up to your example. Today, around the whole country, you see there was a silent strikes from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. It was a remarkable show of resistance. In my opinion, the main message of that silent strike today is to honor the fallen heroes and heroines, and also to reclaim the public space as our own. We may go out or we may not go out. It's all up to us. We belong to the country, and the country is controlled by the people. The strike, today's strike, the nationwide general strike signal, they shall never rule us. Apart from this general strike, I would say people are still organizing different rallies and strike every day. Villagers on the ground gather in assembly point to listen to political talks. Different communities stay organized, people, and in urban area, strike committee, such as General Strike Committee on Ethnic Nationality, they are still organizing people. They managed to post banner in public areas and organize flash mob strikes, risking their life. The civil disobedience movement has remained intact and is joined by more and more civil servants, soldiers, and police defenders. Yesterday, it is reported that 18 civil servants working for the military regime in Gango Township and Magui have defected to the People's Administration Body under the NUG, Myanmar Civilian National Unity Government, NUG. So nonviolent political defiance and different action stay happening on a large scale in different places in Myanmar. Yesterday, so that was about the spirits of the revolution that I want to remind and that I want to convey that the spirit of the revolution was based on the Pelon Agreement, and now it's keep marching on towards our goal. It's stay unfinished. Yesterday, we welcomed sanction imposed by the UK, Canada, and now joined by Australia. Sanction efforts are now also ongoing inside the country as well. People are now boycotting military products, socially punishing those who are involved with the military. And last year, I asked my friends of like people like you to keep encouraging us of our struggle, in our struggle. And today, I want to ask your pledge to keep pressuring the junta, because since not everyone inside the country can do it. So would you please do this for us? That would be my request to each of you, because now the oppression, the resistance keep going strong, and because of it, the military will keep the grid more and more, keeping it more tighter, and there will be more and more escalation of violence and oppression in coming months and upcoming years. So that will be the pledge that I would like to ask you. Even if people inside country cannot do it anymore, would you be waiting for people inside country to do something, right? Because people from around the world in diaspora or in solidarity with the people and who believe in justice and democracy, we have to keep pushing it. Even if the whole country became silent because they couldn't afford to risk anymore, then we still have to keep a pressure on. And another question is, now there is more and more coordination between these countries, but what about India, Japan, Korea, and our neighboring country? If we can get our neighbors on the same page as US, UK, and Canada, I think our revolution will be better. If we can get them on the same page, because they are our neighbors, sharing the borders, we can't replace them. I think then our revolution victory will remain far from us. It is important that now we all try to get ASEAN to do the right thing, because ASEAN is our neighbor. And as long as India and ASEAN isn't doing right, Myanmar or any other nation in the region will never be safe. Today, New Delhi police has blocked the action of the Myanmar people in New Delhi. And they were trying to commemorate the second anniversary of the people resistance. And they blocked it right away, not allowing anyone to be on the street in solidarity with the Myanmar. India is a neighbor, and also is a neighbor to Sagaing region. You might know Sagaing region is my hometown as well, and also is where the junta banned down the villages the most. 17% of the number of the houses banned down are from the Sagaing region. But now we are hearing constantly that the Manipur state government has been evicting and jailing the Myanmar people, calling them illegal migrant, calling them illegal people coming in our land. They should have known better that these people are fleeing out of fear, and they are fleeing for safety. But Indian government, central government, is actively legitimizing the junta since day one. But what are we doing to hold the India accountable? So in my today presentation, the last asked is about the strategy. In that strategy, I would like to present 2 lines. One is India. In 2023, we must hold the India accountable. India as our neighbor and as the biggest democracy, we need to hold that government accountable. And the second I is Indonesia. Indonesia as a chairman, we need to encourage Indonesian government to replace the 5-point consensus, which is already a fake consensus, and do better and to consult with the NUG and different revolutionary forces and ensure that agreement has also has the mechanisms for following up and the implementation. That's the two I like you to join with us in pressuring, encouraging to do better. They are around us. And another two R I like to talk as a strategy for this year is the first R is the revolution. Revolution, we have nothing else but just revolution. In Myanmar, now the people keep going on it. We call it as a revolution. It's not anti-coup. It's not just resistance. It's not just one action, one protest. It's a whole functional revolution that comprised with social revolution, cultural revolution, that also talk about patriarchy in the society, that also talk about racism and discriminations. I want you to join with us in this revolution. If you keep raising awareness about human rights, you are helping Myanmar too. If you keep talking about citizen journalists, you are helping Myanmar people at the same time. So we need to be in this revolution together, not just about politics, but also other different aspects of the whole revolution. And the second R is Rohingya. You see, it's already been, it's almost 6 years now that the Rohingya genocide happened, but what is happening with the Rohingya in the country, in Cox's Bazar? We shouldn't miss that. And now these Rohingya are now fleeing out of country in absolute danger, because as long as the Junta remain in power, Rohingya will no longer be safe inside or outside. So these are the 3 S. I like to talk about the spirit of revolution. Let's keep the spirit up. And the second, we should pressure more on sanction as well as support strike. And that we should focus on the strategy, focusing on 2 countries, India and Indonesia, and talking about revolutions and the Rohingya. Thank you so much for having me today.
So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Chunlei. Well presented and very moving, very touching. Okay. So the next speakers, may I invite Debbie Stoddard. But before she starts, we have the 1-minute video to present to you.
Hi, everybody. It's a hard act to follow when Thinza Shunlei speaks first. But I think Southeast Asia has been obsessed with the economic fallout and implications of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And you saw in the video just now that as of December 2022, the number of conflict-related fatalities in Burma, Myanmar since the coup started was 30,297 people. Of course, Min Aung Hlaing had a head start on Putin, but Ukraine had nearly 1,500 people fewer. It was 28,674. Most people take we are not trying to compete with Ukraine, but what we are trying to help people understand is that in Ukraine, it is a traditional war where there are two armed sides fighting each other with some degree of equality in terms of their weapons and their organization. It is one government fighting another. In Burma, it's basically a military dictatorship unleashing the nation's military might on local communities. And what they have to fight back is themselves, right? The ethnic armed organizations have teamed up with the People's Defense Forces, the PDFs. And what they have to fight, it's basically a David and Goliath battle. But it is also amazing to see that SACAM, Chris Sidoti, is going to be speaking with us later today, that they reported in June last year that despite all its brutality and all its machinery, the illegal military junta has only been able to maintain stable control over 17% compared to 52% of the territory, which is under the control of resistance. So when people would like to assume that the junta is in control, they are not. This is why they become increasingly violent. In the past year, the junta, losing the war on the ground, has launched airstrikes on civilian targets, schools, cultural music festivals, IDP camps. Yeah. Even the state capital of Kaya or Karenni state was subjected to airstrikes. So think about your home state, and imagine the military of your country launching an airstrike on your state capital. That's what's happened more than once in Burma. So in the past year, we saw that, the junta launched 449 airstrikes. This is compared to 91 airstrikes in 2021. So in the past year, in the second year of the coup, we've seen a 493 increase in airstrikes. So this is why we also have to understand the importance when Thinza Shulay and other activists are talking about the need to have sanctions on aviation fuel. We need to limit and restrict this illegal military junta's ability to continue launching airstrikes on civilians in the country. But you know, we're in ASEAN, so we need to talk money. ASEAN governments are concerned about money, economic recovery. That's why they keep talking about the war in Ukraine, driving up the price of fuel, the price of wheat, etc., etc. Now, the various the World Bank, UN OCHA, ILO, Asian Development Bank all have come up with some interesting statistics. In the past year, the economy of Myanmar shrank by 15%, negative 15%, compared to an average of 11% growth in the rest of the region. Okay? So if you think, well, that's in Myanmar and we are here in Thailand, guess what? That's our neighbor. Our regional economic recovery is going to be hostage to what is happening in Burma, Myanmar. poverty has doubled to 40% of the population in the country. That's 40% of 54 million people living on less than $1 a day. 34% will need humanitarian aid and assistance this year. 30% of the whole country. That's over 17 million people. Inflation rose to 19.4%. And that's compared to 7.3% before the coup. And the Myanmar chart lost more than 60% value. Okay? The value of the Myanmar chart fell compared to the Ukrainian hryvnia, which lost 30% of the value. So here we are obsessing about what's going on in Ukraine and how that's affecting our economic recovery. They lost 30% of the value of their currency. Myanmar, in our front doorstep, right next to us, has lost 60% value of the currency. What does that imply? So I think, all of us are here because we feel for what's going on in Burma in our heart. But sometimes we have to actually share the hard facts with our governments who continue to have a very close one eye on Burma, as though Burma is in Ukraine and Ukraine is in Burma. The reality is that, yes, Russia, another country, invaded sovereign Ukraine, but the impact on the ground in Burma is similar. There has been an invasion, a domestic invasion by a brutal and illegal junta, dictatorship. The impact on people on the ground is similar. And we should offer the same type of responses that we continue to offer all around to other critical conflict situations. Today, I was really inspired to see photos and videos of a protest outside the embassy of the illegal junta in Bangkok. More than 1,000 people turned up, and many of them were our Thai friends, our Thai comrades, our Thai brothers and sisters, or in my case, Thai nieces and nephews. Solidarity is incredibly important to keep this revolution going. It's in our collective interest that we get a peaceful, a durable solution to what's happening in Burma, because the destiny of Burma is tied with our own. We cannot run away from that. And that's why it's incredibly heartening to see that there are people joining us in person and online, and thank you for being here.
So thank you so much, Debbie. It's very clear that the political separation by the military junta affect quite a lot to the economic situation and the livelihood of the ordinary people. Okay, so the next speaker, may I go to Dr. Narimon Thapchumpon from Chulalongkorn University. She's also the director of the Asia Research Center for Migration. So thank you. Your turn now.
Okay, thank you.
Stand up so that
I
we
have
can
to
see you.
stand up. Okay, my name is Narumon Thapchumpon. I'm teaching comparative politics at the Faculty of Political Science of Chulalongkorn University. And as Buntan said, I'm doing research on the ASEAN Research Center for Migration. So today, I will follow the beat by the clip. And before we start the clip, I will say that I will talk in 3 points. Right now, I'm doing research on death at the border. So we start with the life and death of the people at the border. Then I will talk about the suffering of the people, that their life. And lastly, I will comment Thailand policy, who always claim that they are very generous, but how generosity happened to the people at the border. So basically, that's my talk. Okay, we start with the clip. I have to say that this clip, I took it from the YouTube. It's in Burmese language, but it has a subtitle in English. And I would like to honor them because this is 2 years after the coup. The clip was done in 1.5 years after the coup. So it's called Killing the Country. Since we're talking about the death, let's see the clip.
အကြမ်းဖက်စစ်အုပ်စုကတိုင်းပြည်အာဏာကိုမတရားလူယူထားတာတနေ့နဲ့6လတိုင်ခဲ့ပါပြီဒီတနစ်ခွဲကာလအတွင်းတိုင်းပြည်ဟာစီးပွားရေးပညာရေးကျန်းမာရေးသတင်းအချက်လက်စီစဉ်ရေးနဲ့တရားဥပဒေစိုးမိုးရေးစတဲ့ကဏ္ဍအလုံးမှာအဖက်ဖက်ကနေယိုယွင်းပျက်စီးမှုပေါင်းများစွာနဲ့တနစ်ထက်တနစ်ပုံမှုဆိုးရွားလာနေပါတယ် ထောင်နဲ့တောင်းနဲ့ချီတဲ့စစ်ဘေးဒုက္ခသည်တွေပုံမများပြားလာတယ်လို့နေ့စဉ်နဲ့အမျှမလုံခြုံမှုတွေချင်းချောက်မှုတွေနဲ့ပြည်သူတွေဟာဖိစီးနှိပ်စက်မှုတွေကိုရင်ဆိုင်နေရပါတယ် တိုင်းပြည်ရဲ့တရားဇာတပေါင်းများစွာအရင်းမြစ်ပေါင်းများစွာဆုံးရှုံးနေမှုတွေဟာဇက်တိုက်ဖြစ်ပေါ်နေသလိုတစ်ဆက်တည်းမှာပဲတိုင်းပြည်တည်ဆောက်ရေးမှာအင်မတန်မှအရေးကြီးတဲ့လူစွမ်းအားအရင်းအမြစ်ဆုံးရှုံးမှုတန်ကိုလည်းကြုံတွေ့နေရပြန်ပါတယ် ဖေဖော်ဝါရီလတရက်အာနာသိန်းချိန်ကနေတနစ်ခွဲအတိကြာမြင့်တဲ့2022ခုနှစ်ဇူလိုင်လ31ရက်နေ့အထိရဟန်းရှင်လူပြည်သူလူထုအပေါင်း14919ယောက်ဟာတရားလက်လွတ်ဖမ်းဆီးထိန်းသိမ်းခံခဲ့ရပြီး2138ယောက်ကတော့စစ်အုပ်စုနဲ့သူ့ရဲ့အပေါင်းပါလက်ပါစီတွေကြောင့်မတရားသဖြင့်အသက်ဆုံးရှုံးသွားခဲ့ရပါပြီ။ ဒီအထဲမှာနိုင်ငံရဲ့အဖို့တန်လူစွမ်းအရင်းမြစ်တွေဖြစ်တဲ့ကျောင်းသူကျောင်းသားအသိပညာရှင်အတတ်ပညာရှင်တွေအများအပြားပါဝင်နေပါတယ်။ဒါအပြင်အနာဂတ်မျိုးဆက်သစ်ကလေးသူငယ်ပေါင်းများစွာဟာလည်းဒီလိုလူမဆန်ရက်ဆက်ဆိုးရွားတဲ့ဖြစ်စဉ်ထဲမှာနစ်နာခံစားနေကြရပါတယ်။ အဖမ်းမခံရအသက်မခံရတဲ့သူတွေအနေနဲ့လည်းချင်းချောက်မှုမျိုးစုံကြောင့်တိုင်းပြည်အတွင်းကနေနေ့စဉ်နဲ့အမျှအလုံးအရင်းနဲ့နေရစွန့်ကွာထွက်ပြေးနေရပါတယ်။ တနစ်ခွဲကာလအတွင်းဥပဒေပြုပြည်သူကိုယ်စားလှယ်128ဦးအစိုးရတာဝန်ရှိသူ169ဦးဆေးဘက်ဆိုင်ရာဝန်ထမ်းတွေထက်ကဆရာဝန်92ဦးတူနာပြု39ဦးပညာရေးနယ်ပယ်ထက်ကကျောင်းဆရာဆရာမ250ဦးကျောင်းသားကျောင်းသူ1132ဦးအင်ဂျင်နီယာ50ဦးရှေ့နေ42ဦးအမှုပညာရှင်88ဦးနဲ့သတင်းမီဒီယာသမား158ဦးတို့တရားလက်လို့ဖမ်းဆီးခံခဲ့ကြရပါတယ်။ ဒါအပြင်ဖန်ဝရန်ထုတ်ထားသူတွေလည်းထောင်ချီရှိပါတယ်။ ရွယ်မရောက်သေးတဲ့အသက်18နှစ်နဲ့အောက်ကလေးသူငယ်စုစုပေါင်း448ဦးဟာတစက္ကန့်အဖြစ်အပါအဝင်အကြောင်းအမျိုးမျိုးကြောင့်ဖမ်းဆီးချုပ်နှောင်ခံခဲ့ရတယ်လို့အဆိုပါအရေးအတွက်ထဲမှာအသက်73နှစ်အောက်ကလေးငယ်89ဦးပါဝင်ပါတယ်လူတယောက်ရဲ့လွတ်လပ်မှုကိုမတရားသဖြင့်ချုပ်ချက်ပိတ်ပင်ခြင်းဟာအဲ့ဒီလူအတွက်ကာယဉာဏဇာရိတဖွံ့ဖြိုးတိုးတက်ဖို့ဟန်တာနောက်ဆက်တာပါပဲဒါအပြင်အရွယ်မရောက်သေးတဲ့ကလေးသူငယ်တွေကိုအကျဉ်းထောင်နှံရန်တွေရဲ့နောက်မှာပိတ်လောင်ထားခြင်းဟာအင်မတန်ဆိုးရွားရက်ဆက်တဲ့လုပ်ရက်ဖြစ်တယ်လို့ကလေးတွေကိုဘယ်ခြေအနေမျိုးမှာပဲဖြစ်ဖြစ်ကာဝယ်ပေးရမယ်ဉာဏ်ပညာပိုင်းခန္ဓာကိုယ်ပိုင်းဆိုင်ရာဖွံ့ဖြိုးတိုးတက်မှုရှိစေရမယ်လူအဖွဲ့အစည်းအတွင်းထဲမှာကောင်းမွန်စွာပါဝင်နေထိုင်ခွင့်ရှိရမယ်ဆိုတဲ့ကလေးသူငယ်ဆိုင်ရာအခြေခံအခွင့်အရေးတွေကိုပြောင်ပြောင်တင်းတင်းချိုးဖောက်လိုက်ခြင်းပါပဲမတရားဖမ်းဆီးမှုတွေတင်မကပါဘူးပြည်သူလူထုတရလုံးပေါ်အကြမ်းဖက်နှိပ်ကွပ်တပ်ဖြတ်မှုတွေကြောင့်ဆေးဘက်ဆိုင်ရာဝန်ထမ်း73ဦးကျောင်းဆရာဆရာမ29ဦးကျောင်းသားကျောင်းသူ94ဦးအသက်18နှစ်အောက်ကလေး202ဦးဟာအာဏာသိမ်းမှုတစ်နှစ်ခွဲကာလအတွင်းမှာတေဆုံးခဲ့ရပါတယ်လူစွမ်းအရင်းမြစ်ဆုံးရှုံးမှုဟာကောင်းမွန်တိုးတက်တဲ့အနာဂတ်ဖက်ဒရယ်နိုင်ငံတော်တည်ဆောက်ရေးအတွက်ကြီးမားတဲ့ထိုးနှက်ချက်ပါမြန်မာနိုင်ငံဟာစစ်အာဏာရှင်တို့ရဲ့လက်ချက်နဲ့ဆယ်စုနှစ်ပေါင်းများစွာလူစွမ်းအရင်းမြစ်ဆုံးရှုံးမှုနဲ့အုံနောက်ယိုစီးမှုရဲ့အကျိုးဆက်ကိုခံစားခဲ့ရပြီးပညာရှင်လိုအပ်ချက်အလွန်မြင့်မားခဲ့ရကနေပယ်အသီးသီးမှာဆုပ်ယုပ်နစ်နာခံစားခဲ့ကြရပါတယ်။ယခုဒီချိန်မှာလည်းစစ်အုပ်စုရဲ့အာဏာလုမှုကြောင့်အဖို့တန်ပညာရှင်တွေအနာဂတ်မျိုးဆက်သစ်တွေကိုထပ်မံဆုံးရှုံးနေပြန်ပါပြီ။ဒီအာနာရှင်တွေတလုံးလေကြလားရှင်တို့ဒီအာနာရှင်တွေတလုံးလေကြလားကောင်းမွန်တဲ့အနာဂတ်နိုင်ငံတော်ကိုဖန်တီးတည်ဆောက်နိုင်ဖို့ရာအာဏာရှင်စနစ်ကိုအမြင့်ပြတ်တွန်းလှန်တိုက်ထုတ်ဖို့လူတိုင်းမှာတာဝန်ရှိပါတယ်။နောက်မျိုးဆက်တွေကိုစစ်မှန်တဲ့ဒီမိုကရေစီမျိုးစစ်ချပေးခဲ့ဖို့နဲ့လူစွမ်းအရင်းမြစ်များလွတ်လပ်စွာပြန်လည်ဖွံ့ဖြိုးအားကောင်းလာဖို့အတွက်စစ်အာဏာရှင်ကိုပြည်သူတရက်လုံးလက်တွဲညီညီနဲ့အပြီးတိုင်ဖြိုချတွန်းလှန်ကြပါစို့။အရေးတော်ပုံမှုတ်ချအောင်ရမည်။နိုင်ငံတော်အတွက်ဆိုအသက်ကိုလည်းပါမတိသေးပါစေခုတောင်းသွေးရဲရဲရှိကိုချီ
Okay, thank you. We can close the clip. So you can see, I will not use the PowerPoint to save the time, but what the clip already said, thanks to AAPP. I think the clip is called Killing the Country. And I think this is a situation that happened after since 2 years. I mean, the thing that we are finding dead at the border is that we found the situation of people inside Burma, Myanmar, that they face the arrest, they face the situation, the vulnerable situation and the arrest and with the torture. So I think the number that Debbie told us is just not the figure, but the figure that show about life of the people. So, I mean, if you visit the museum or you visit the website of the AAPP, when it show the number is clicking every day. But this is not about the digital number, but the number also show that what happened to the people, I mean, next to Thailand at the border. Their situation is that people who are now living in the country either faced by the situation of, I mean, physical death and also economic death in a sense that right now, as far as I know that the situation of the people there, their salary has been frozen. Some of my students their bank account has been frozen, and they allow only one bank account, which is in Chad, not the foreign account. So the situation of the vulnerable, that is also happen. And after that, how about life? The situation of the life of the people that we are finding at the border is that it is people who cross the border. I mean, right now, the ASEAN Research Center of Migration, we are doing research of the livelihood of the migrants after COVID-19, during the COVID-19. So we might argue that for the Burmese, for the Myanmar people, either they are Burma, Mon, Kachin, Karen, and also any other. Right now, we face the situation of their livelihood because people who cross the border might be, they are not voluntarily to cross, but they have no choice. There's no choice left for them. The only way for them to do is that to cross the border to work in Thailand, or to cross the border in order to find the, I mean, more safe place situation. So this is what we are finding out. If we look at the map along the Thai and Myanmar border, we might still see the idea of the refugee camp. But what I want to say right now is that it's not only the refugee in the camp, but you will see displaced people. I mean, after that, the first day, the second one is another day is displaced person or displaced people. These people have been displaced because of the war, because of the violence that takes place. So we might see from the clip that the situation that people cross the border to find a safe place in Thailand. And with the policy that you can stay in Thailand only 72 hours after the fight, and after 72 hours, you will be forced to going back to, I mean, to be outside Thailand. And that's the problem that we create displaced people. Some of them in the PowerPoint, I mean, you can visit later. In the PowerPoint, we visit one place, which is in the middle of the Murray River, that people have to stay there because they cannot go back to their home village and they cannot stay inside Thailand. And these people become illegal migrants who have to work in Thailand, or they might have to be seasonal worker. And I think this is a situation that we found out. Those who are displaced because of the political situation, displaced because of the war conflict that they have, the violence or air drone strike that affect to them, and displaced because of their economic situation that they have to cross the border. So in that context, what do they live? I mean, according to the study with the research, we found out that during the COVID-19, for the mainly in Thailand, Myanmar migrant worker, and many of them have to be live and find a place. So this is a very difficult situation for them. And some of them have to receive the salary, something like less than the minimum wage. Thailand already discussed about 600 baht per day, right, for the minimum wage. I think for them it's 160, not 600. So this is a situation that they are fighting. And the last day is the issue of the democracy as well, that in case of Thailand always argue that it will follow the humanitarian principle by allow people to be in the Thai side. And with the situation of the non-reform, I think Ambassador Kasit will talk more. But what we found out in reality at the border of displaced people is that they have to pay for the so-called quote-unquote safety card in order to stay. And some have to work at the factory. And I think under the context, when Thailand claimed that, I think Thailand already claimed that it's always host those who face the difficulty, and under the generosity of Thailand, I think it have to show more than mean policy. At the moment, what the Thai government do is very status quo. It's just allow people to cross, to live and close one eye. And in that case, it's allow the exploitation to take place. And I think this is the thing that we may have to discuss. Since I'm a Thai person, people might bear or might comment saying that what Thailand can do, because we really depend upon migrant worker from Myanmar. If the military junta do not allow Myanmar people to cross the border 800 persons per day, what will be our labor, something like that. But I think we have to be more creative than just accept the situation. And the second, some security people in the Thai policy may argue that we depend upon the energy from Myanmar with the gas, so we have to, not to be, cannot do much. But I think maybe the creativity under the context of this, maybe since Thailand already talking about economic recovery, we need more labor. The labor shortage is now happened in Thailand. We need more labor to solve the situation of the renewal of the tourism. And I think for us, when we talk about nobody safe, when you allow, your neighboring to be unsafe, I think this is a situation. So for me, maybe to renew or to redefine the meaning of the policy. At the moment, our authorities separate between economic policy and humanitarian policy. And I think we need to change into the more holistic policy. And since I guess Thailand may have to amendment on the 5 consensus. Sorry that the 5 consensus already, what you call, like a talk shop. But I think to do that, to make it in terms of reality with the issue of a humanitarian policy, maybe what the Thai government need to redefine the meaning of the corridor. We always talking about economic corridor, tourism corridor. So I would like to address again and again. This is my second time to address that. How about humanitarian corridor? Why don't we redefine and bring the people in that more in the holistic way? And lastly, Thailand is now exciting for democracy to the election. We hope to have election in May, right? I guess in Myanmar, after the meeting yesterday, right, in Naypyidaw, it seemed to me that the junta, the military junta may saying that I have to extend the emergency decree. But for me, I think democracy is not only limited with the territorial, with the demarcation on the Thai side. Maybe when we talk about democracy, we might have to looking into a broader perspective and to support our friend. It is necessary for our democracy as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Narimon. It's very clear on the statement that I'm not going to summarize. So maybe we switch to our speakers from the Zoom. Chris Sidoti, are you with us? Chris was the Australian Commission for Human Rights and Equal Opportunities, and also the special rapporteurs on the human rights situation in Myanmar. So Chris, the floor is yours. You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Buntan, and thanks to all of the organisers for inviting me to participate this evening. It really is a privilege to be sharing a seminar, webinar with so many distinguished people. I certainly share the views expressed by Tinza Shumle Yi about today, about it being both a day of celebration and a day of mourning. It's very sad to reflect that today is the 2nd anniversary of the commencement of this coup. Commencement because it's far from finished. The resistance is such that the coup has not been successful. but it began 2 years ago, and the suffering that it brought and continues to bring has been indescribable since it began. But there is also much to celebrate, because there has never been an occasion in modern Myanmar's history, not since independence, where the people have been so united, so committed, so determined as they have been during the last 2 years. And particularly the young people of Myanmar, who really are inspirations to all of us throughout the world of commitment and determination and creative strategizing in the face of brutal force. There is much to celebrate in the middle of all the sadness. I want to make my comments tonight about the future rather than the past. Not about the last 2 years, but about the next 1 year. And to describe some of the challenges that I see arising for that period, both internationally and for Myanmar people. Let me first deal internationally. In the next year, there is urgent need for the international system, other nations and the United Nations itself, to be stronger in its support for the democracy movement in Myanmar and stronger in its opposition to the military. The international response to date has been there in some instances, but it has been very disappointing, very weak and very slow. Many wonderful things have been said, but far too often the good words have not been backed up with effective international action. It's good to see the UN Security Council last month finally adopt a resolution on Myanmar. And there is a lot of good things said in that resolution, but there's no action. It's good to see the representative of the National Unity Government continuing to represent Myanmar in the General Assembly, but that's not carried forward into other forums. It's not carried forward into the Human Rights Council, for example, or the various UN agencies dealing with specialized areas like health and labor and culture and science and so forth. Many individual countries have adopted sanctions against Myanmar. Some acted very quickly. Others, like my country, Australia, acted slowly, but today it too has finally acted. But the UN Security Council has been incapable of reaching agreement to impose a regime of a universal comprehensive arms embargo and economic sanctions against the military's business interests. So there is still a long way to go. I'm concerned about the impact that any elections in Myanmar called by the military might have on international solidarity. International attention shifts very quickly. That's been described well, I think, by Debbie in comparing the response to Ukraine to the response to Myanmar. The coup in Myanmar, when it began, attracted a lot of international attention. But that attention moved on to other issues, like Afghanistan and the war in Gaza in 2021, and now Ukraine. I'm afraid international attention tires quickly and international commitment fatigues easily. Many countries are looking for a solution to the situation in Myanmar so they can forget about it. And that's what the military leadership has in mind in wanting to call an election. Now, we know that no election can be free and fair, or even comprehensive. Not free and fair because there was a free and fair election in 2020, and the military refused to accept the results of that free and fair election. And any election it conducts will only be conducted on the basis of guaranteeing the result that the military wants. But the military is not even capable of conducting a national election. As Debbie has indicated, the military controls only a small part of the territory of Myanmar and will simply be unable to conduct voting in the majority of the country. So even if it were prepared to have a free and fair election, which it's not, but even if it were, it would be unable to carry that out through the country. Quite clearly, the intention of Senior General Min Aung Hlaing is to attract international support by changing his clothes. By changing his clothes from khaki to longji, he hopes that the appearance of a civilian government following a sham election will be enough to attract international support. And I fear that there will be some countries that will be attracted to seeing a solution to the Myanmar situation in a sham election. We've seen that already in other ASEAN countries. And so Min Aung Hlaing must think, if it can be acceptable in other ASEAN countries, then why not for Myanmar? Holding international solidarity, strengthening support for the democratic movement, and opposing the military remains the challenge for the international community in these next 12 months. For individual countries, for the United Nations, and also for ASEAN. Thinza Shunlei referred to the two eyes, India and Indonesia. Indonesia certainly is critical this year for ASEAN, as it holds the chair of ASEAN. And it's certainly necessary to encourage Indonesia to play a stronger leadership role in moving ASEAN forward on Myanmar than what we have seen in the past. But to Thinza's two eyes, I would add one T, Thailand. Thailand is the biggest obstacle to progress in ASEAN. The military junta in Myanmar's best friend in ASEAN is Thailand. And Thailand protects Myanmar in ASEAN in the same way as Russia protects Myanmar in the Security Council. So all of us, we Australians, you, wherever you live, all of us have to place pressure on our governments in this next year to be stronger in their support for the democracy movement and more determined in their opposition to the military. That's the international challenge. I want as well to raise one Myanmar challenge. And I say this as an outside observer. I'm not a Myanmar person, but I look back at the history of similar struggles to this in many countries around the world over the long years of my life. The third year of a revolution is a very difficult year. It's the year where the greatest risk is the fragmentation of the revolution itself. People become impatient. They become frustrated. There are challenges to the leadership. There are fears that the leadership is not delivering. Different interests start coming into play. The early enthusiasm and commitment to unity comes under pressure. Nothing would delight Min Aung Hlaing and his cronies more than to see the great unity of the Myanmar people fragmenting during the course of this year. The risk has to be identified. Calling it out is not a matter of creating a problem. Without identifying the problem, it's more likely to be destructive. Myanmar people certainly need to be aware from the experience of others who are going through this kind of experience and have done so in the past, of the risk of the military deliberately playing divide and rule strategies, of trying to fragment the democratic movement. That's a temptation that they have succumbed to in the past. It's a strategy that they have used to great effect. It must not be allowed to succeed this year. And that means we need to see continuing unity, stronger unity, in fact, continuing mutual respect and tolerance for other views, and a renewed commitment to joint strategizing by all the various elements of the democratic resistance. Leadership is spread widely in this movement, and that's been one of its strengths. We don't want to see the leadership break down, but we do want to see broad consultation, joint decision-making, joint strategizing, and an even stronger resistance. That, it seems to me, is the challenge for Myanmar people this year, to strengthen unity and not allow it to fragment. So it's a difficult year ahead of us, a very difficult year. We people outside Myanmar, we countries outside Myanmar have to be more determined. And we offer our continuing support to the Myanmar people in their resistance to this brutal military. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Chris, for your very insightful comment and experience. Of course, it's related to the question of analysis and many others. Well, very key statement I grabbed from Chris is that Thailand is a big obstacle for the political change in Myanmar. So Ambassador Kasit, as the former foreign minister, you have anything to say or in response to this comment and many other points that you would like to address to the current situation? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have a lot to say, but I try to be very concise. But before doing that, may I introduce two of my colleagues here present, Mr. Carlos from Spain and Mr. Mark from the United States. Mr. Carlos handles the media and communication and so on, but for the past 1 year, he has been instrumental in two of APHR activities. One is the International Parliamentarian Alliance for Myanmar. It's a forum where we have many MPs from parliaments around the world to discuss and follow up the situation in Myanmar, as well as to move with their respective parliamentarians and their national governments to pay utmost attention and take responsibility for the solution to the Myanmar crisis. And subsequently, in the course of the middle of last year, we set up another group called the International Parliamentary Inquiry on the International Response to Myanmar, IPI. And we had as the chair the current Deputy Speaker of the European Parliament, Madame Heidi, who is an MP from Finland of the Green Party. And as of November of last year, just 2 months ago, we did launch the IPI report at the Foreign Correspondent Club. We also had a meeting with the joint EU ambassadors in Bangkok. And in November and December, we have an APHR delegation to Washington and to New York to speak to the US administration, as well as to some of the senior UN bureaucrats and so on. And as of this just last December, we also had an APHR delegation to the European Parliament to present the IPI and to keep on pushing European parliamentarians and so on for Europe as a whole and their member state to pay attention to the Myanmar crisis, to help solve it in spite of the difficulties that they have been confronting with the Russian invasion of Ukraine and so on. Having said that, let me introduce myself a bit. I come here with 3 hats. One as a board member of APHR. Second, I just being appointed as a board member of TBC, the border consortium that has been handling the 9 refugee camps on the Thai border next to Myanmar and so on. And third, as an advisor to the Thai campaign for democracy, the chair is Kun Buntan. So all of my works and so on has something to do with the promotion of democracy, with the promotion and protection of human rights. And for, I think, for the humanitarian concern that humankind must have one for another, and so on. Now, let me update you a bit of what APHR has been doing for the past 12 months or so beside the IPI report. Just a few days ago, we did come out with a statement very critical of the Thai government under General Prayut Chan-o-cha for the fact that he allowed his foreign minister, Mr. Don, to organize a sort of a side foreign minister meeting. The foreign minister that attended were the foreign minister of Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, all the bad guys, put it that way. Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines, and Singapore, and so on, refused to attend. I think it was a very bad move, bad taste in it, indeed, for the Thai foreign minister to have done that. He did not take into consideration the face, the stature, and the respect that one should have for the current chairperson of ASEAN, namely Indonesia. You cannot do that, you know. And the fact that also the foreign minister of Indonesia is the special envoy of ASEAN for the Myanmar affair. How can a Thai foreign minister ever do that? What is his family background? How was his upbringing? And how come he has been a long-term decades of diplomats, highly educated, and so on, from Chulalongkorn as well as from Fletcher School of Diplomacy, Tufts University. I could not understand that at all. And then at the same time, General Prayut allowed the Supreme Commander of the Thai Armed Forces to go to Naypyidaw a few days ago. And lately, I think the Thai government, together with the United States, I think Pentagon and so on, will be the key party to the upcoming, I think, ASEAN Defense Minister meeting and military exercise and so on. And I could not understand the United States Department also that having the passing promulgation of the Burma Act just a few weeks ago, and how come the United States is not raising up the issue of whether there to be the presence of the defense minister of Myanmar at the ASEAN defense minister meeting and so on. The promoter of democracy of the world, the US, cannot allow this just to go on unnoticed and so on. So that's one thing. So I think what we have done so far as of last week is to raise this concern with the Thai government. And we hope to do this further to raise concern with the United States government in particular. And for that sense, we would like to invite all of us CEs and so on, maybe to join in this effort to raise our common concern for the protection of the revolution of Myanmar and to get rid of the Thatbandor from the political scene of Myanmar once and for all and so on. Besides coming out with joint statement, op-eds and so on, we also have been approaching directly members of the Japanese Diet. I and one member of the Japanese senators did submit an open letter to the Japanese government, that one of the deputy foreign minister a few months ago, to urge the Japanese government as the major economic player in ASEAN to play a more political role. And one thing that I could not understand thinking and the mentality of the Japanese government is the fact that now they have become an extended member of NATO organization, talking about democracy on the Ukraine-Russian theater. But so far, for the past 2 years, they have been ignoring the situation in Myanmar crisis altogether. I could not understand that. I think discrepancy in the thinking of the Japanese authority. So this would be one other subject matter that we have to work together to bring our attention, our concern to the Japanese government for them to act accordingly as a democracy, as a stakeholder in the affairs of Southeast Asia since the Second World War and so on. They cannot ignore the situation in Southeast Asia, but to pay a lot of attention to what the American government has been telling them to do on the Ukraine theater. It's quite a discrepancy and so on. We also have been working with some members of the Australian members of parliament. In fact, there is an outstanding an open letter to be signed jointly by myself and one of the Australian MP to be submitted to the newly installed Australian government. I also have been working with a group of Myanmar, what you call the diaspora in Melbourne, and a group of Friends of Myanmar in Melbourne and so on. We have set up Myanmar Refugee Policy Group, and we have been trying to keep on pushing the Foreign Ministry of Australia, members of Parliament and so on, to force Australia to come back and to become an active members in the affair of Southeast Asia as a traditional partner and as an ASEAN partner. It is quite surprising that both the Conservative and the subsequent Labour government Australia has ignored the situation in Southeast Asia completely. Just only the few days of one good news that I think Chris did mention, or even Chonle, that there is now the decision by the Australian government to make a targeted sanction on about 30 members of the Tatmadaw led by Senior General Mong Enlai. But that is not enough. There must be more sanctions, and there must be a firmer position from the Australian side to tell the Tatmadaw that their days are numbered. And Australia must, by tradition, renew the working relationship with ASEAN as a whole. And with Indonesia in the chair now, Australia would be in the great position to work together with the Indonesia to push the common cause of the democratic movement inside Myanmar. Austria is in the position to do a lot. And I would also like to invite all of us to have a joint demarche on the Australian government for them to move forward. At the same time, we could do more with Washington, D.C. as a result of the promulgation of the Burma Act, that the State Department must come out with an action plan and to release the frozen asset, the money that has been, I think, slated to help the development of Myanmar that is installed or frozen inside the Asian Development and the World Bank to be released to help Myanmar on the humanitarian crisis and so on. And one last point, very important one, Chonle is very civilized, very kind. She only mentioned about the misbehavior of India and placing some hope from Indonesia. But Chris has already, I think, supplemented by saying that another culprit is the Thai government and the Thai military. We have to join forces to tell General Prayut and various parliamentarians in Thailand and so on that non-refoulement is non-refoulement, and Thailand in the past tradition of the modern history has been a country that has been, I think, receiving refugees from the Dien Bien Phu era, from the civil war in Vietnam, in Cambodia, in Laos, and in Myanmar. We have never been, I think, shy to welcome all the refugees and political asylum seekers. It's only this Thai Prime Minister and this Thai Foreign Minister that are behaving in a very non-Thai way of being so uncompassionate in that sense and ignore what's going on, doesn't have any respect for the democratic forces of ordinary Myanmar people. This cannot go on, and we have to keep on pressing the Thai government to change course, act accordingly, and play within the game of ASEAN in spite of the shortcoming of the 5-point consensus and so on. And I think we're going to, on the 3rd and the 5th of March, in a few weeks' time, APHR will have a general meeting in Jakarta. And we will use that occasion to meet with the Indonesian Foreign Minister, with the Commission 1, the Foreign Affairs Commission of the Indonesian Parliament. We will be also meeting with the Indonesian think tank, CSIS, and so on. So we will do whatever we can to push the Indonesian government to take up its long-held tradition of being the forefront country of ASEAN and to push the common causes of ASEAN and democracy forward. I think Indonesia has the obligation legally and morally to help solve the Myanmar crisis. And the Indonesian government must have a bilateral talk with the Thai government so that the two countries can move together for the common cause of the revolution inside Myanmar. So these are some of the points. And I think in a few days' time, APHR will be organizing a sort of an inter-CSO meeting in Bangkok and in Chiang Mai so that we can coordinate our joint position and to move the Thai government, Indonesian government, and the ASEAN community as a whole so that things would change inside Myanmar, and we should not disappoint, and we should not, I think, sort of ignore the plight and the situation in Myanmar and the democratic aspiration of our sister and brothers in Myanmar. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Kasit. Very clear how the current Thai government behave. At the meantime, it's also referring many factors, especially the role of the ASEAN this year is very critical. It mentioned about the role of the Washington DC. So perhaps only Phil Robertson from Human Rights Watch can let us know, can tell us the story, what the Washington is thinking and what they're seeing and doing.
Well,
yes,
yeah, thank you very much. I'm Phil Robertson from Human Rights Watch. Thank you very much for the Alliance for Free Burma Solidarity for inviting me to speak tonight. The situation in Washington, I'm not sure, to be honest. There was a resolution that was just proposed. Chuck Schumer wasn't on it in the Senate. Neither was McConnell. So when you look at what is happening there, it's unclear. And we're still trying to figure out, many people may have seen that the Yokogawa company in Japan received a waiver from the US Treasury Department to provide $1 million to the Myanmar Economic Corporation, which is a conglomerate that is controlled by the Myanmar military. We don't know why that sanction waiver was given, but it's very, very concerning. We have been continually pressing the US government to sanction the Myanmar oil and gas enterprise. MOGI is one of the critical pieces in terms of real sanctions pressure against the Myanmar military. When you're talking about the financial pipeline of support for the Myanmar military junta, you got to look at oil and gas. And that oil and gas is being paid in US dollars. And we have urged the State Department and the Treasury Department to implement sanctions against MOGI. What we got today was sanctions against individuals, the director and the deputy director of MOGI. But that's not enough. I mean, you're talking about an individual's interest, an individual's involvement, but you're not talking about the overall organization, which is critical to send the money into Myanmar from Thailand, which is, of course, buying the natural gas. So we're still trying to figure out what the State Department and the Treasury Department are playing at. On one hand, the US says very tough things about Myanmar, but on the other hand, we have these actions like this, where they keep coming up short. And, we keep hearing that, oh, well, they don't want to offend Thailand, a critical ally of the United States. But, if they're serious about putting pressure on Myanmar and on the Myanmar military junta, they're going to have to make a choice. And so far, they've been refusing to do so. But I actually wanted to speak today a little bit about the situation in ASEAN and do a little bit of an analysis here, because I wrote a piece actually that appeared in the Bangkok Post today, talking about what is going on within ASEAN. And, we'll echo some of the same things that other people are saying, talking about the critical role of Thailand. But as you all know, ASEAN operates on the basis of a consensus. And there was a consensus 2 years ago, last April, for the 5-point consensus, the 5PC, which was talking about ending violence, immediately ending violence in Myanmar, which was that they were going to talk to all sides, they were going to provide humanitarian assistance, and there was going to be a special envoy of ASEAN to try to facilitate agreement. But as soon as Senior General Min Aung Hlaing returned to Myanmar, it was quite clear that there was going to be no implementation. And we have seen no implementation. And that is one of the reasons people are so dissatisfied with the 5-point consensus, is that the 5-point consensus has not seen any progress since it was agreed in April 2021 in Jakarta. What has been disconcerting, however, is that after the first several months of the crisis in Myanmar, and as soon as the Myanmar junta started cracking down and made it very difficult for video images and clips and photos to come out of Myanmar, that the international community's attention went elsewhere. And at that point, we started hearing about ASEAN centrality, where if you talk to Washington, D.C., or you talk to Canberra, you talk to Brussels, they all say, oh yes, we're very concerned about the situation in Myanmar, but we believe in ASEAN centrality. And what they're saying is that we're hiding behind ASEAN. They're hiding behind the idea that let's let the Asians sort it out because we can't, and we're busy somewhere else, whether it be Ukraine or Iran or wherever else they're focused. And so the international community has effectively said bye-bye to Myanmar, really for the last year and a half. And in the meantime, what we've seen is a fundamental split develop within ASEAN between two sides. One is the the maritime ASEAN, which currently led by Indonesia, the chair of ASEAN now, but support Malaysia, Singapore, Philippines, and Brunei. And on the other side, we have the Mekong ASEANs, which is led by Thailand as the key ringleader, along with Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, and of course, Myanmar itself. And that came very, very clear when the day after the UN Security Council passed its first resolution on Myanmar ever, where it was a resolution that we frankly thought was not strong enough, but actually was important in getting Russia and China to at least stay on board with some sort of rhetorical commitment to some of the problems in Myanmar. That the day after that, we had a meeting convened by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Thailand, which was attended by 3 Myanmar military ministers, along with the Foreign Minister of Laos, the Foreign Minister of Cambodia, the Deputy Foreign Minister of Vietnam, and of course, the Foreign Minister of Thailand. And what became clear is that the Thai policy is focused very clearly on undermining any sort of support for a 5-point consensus where violence ends and all sides get talked to, and humanitarian is provided without fear or favor across the border and allowed to reach the people who really need it. And I actually call this policy the Four Paw policy. The 4 paw is Prayut, Prawit, Don, Pramut, Vinay, and Pauline. And it is these 4 people who are devising a policy that has thrown Thailand completely over to the side of the SAC junta. This is a policy that, as Kun Kasit mentioned, is sort of betraying a core policy of Thailand foreign policy, which is that you play both sides. You don't throw in all on one side. And what does that policy consist of in Thailand? Well, right now, there's apparently a belief amongst these policymakers that the SAC military junta is going to win a military victory, so that they're on the right side. That therefore they need to support SAC uncritically. Connected to that is the military to military ties between the Thai military and the Burmese military, which we see, for instance, in this latest meeting where the chief of the Thai army went over and met with Min Aung Hlaing for 3 days in Rakhine State. Thailand has a very clear policy of no discussion, no interaction with the National Unity Government of Myanmar. and no discussion with the ethnic armed organizations and groups. And the idea is that Thailand, they think they're playing it smart, that you have a vulnerable Myanmar, so therefore, as Western companies or others pull out of Myanmar, Thailand will be able to sweep in and make economic benefits. So what we see is really that Thailand is the problem. Thailand is the Dua Banha. Nah. And in some ways, it appears that perhaps Thailand is creating this crisis within ASEAN in order to allow for the only alternative left on the table being this Myanmar so-called election, this bogus, illegitimate election that the Myanmar military junta is talking about holding perhaps in August, although I understand now that there has been an announcement to continue the state of emergency, so that timetable may be moved back. But the bottom line is the off-ramp that Min Aung Hlaing sees is that he wants to have an election where it is rigged so that he and his party are the only ones who can compete and win, and that he then becomes the democratic leader of Myanmar. There's going to be, I think, a lot of fireworks later this week because the ASEAN foreign ministers meeting is taking place on February 3rd and 4th in Jakarta. And we're going to see behind closed doors the maritime ASEANs versus the Mekong ASEANs on the issue of Myanmar policy. And where it comes out, I don't know. So what we have said very clearly is that it's incumbent for the maritime ASEANs to recognize that they're not going to necessarily be able to change Thai policy. They should try, they should push, but if they don't, they need to have a plan B. And that plan B is along the lines of what the UN Special Rapporteur for Human Rights in Myanmar, Tom Andrews, has been calling for, which is a reconstituted Friends of Myanmar group, which would include countries like Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, the Philippines, who are prepared to pressure Myanmar with other countries that perhaps already have sanctions like the US and others as well. That there has to be now a new coalition that is prepared to push fundamentally for change in Myanmar and is prepared to bring economic sanctions, is prepared to help create accountability mechanisms. It is prepared to do all the things that needed to show that there's real political commitment in the international community to support the Myanmar people. If we don't have that, then we're going to keep bouncing around with this ASEAN centrality idea. By the middle of the year, maybe we'll have a new Thai government that will think something a little bit different, but that'll be 3 or 4 months before Indonesia's chairmanship of ASEAN is ended. And next year, who do we get? Laos. Do you think Laos is going to do anything on Myanmar? No. So time is not on our side. There needs to be a new sort of jumping off point that involves ASEAN, but is not beholden to ASEAN, that looks at ASEAN centrality and recognizes that ASEAN centrality based on an ASEAN consensus that doesn't exist is going nowhere. And that we, sitting in this room, have a unique and very pressing duty to try to change the Thai policy and to try to change what ASEAN is doing before it's too late. Thanks.
Thank you, Phil. Yes, Ambassador, you have anything to add?
Can I add one point to what Phil just mentioned? The Canadian permanent representative to the UN is organizing or arranging for the setting up of a Friend of Burma group at the UN, which is in fact a renewal, because the last UN Secretary General, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, did set up the Friends of Burma group at the UN. And I did attend this group 3 times when I was foreign minister and was attending the UNGA session. And I did mention this also to everyone, that we should be in support. I did mention this to Madame Heidi, the Deputy Speaker of the European Parliament, that we should keep on pushing this, because I think ASEAN centrality is now a farce with the split very strongly inside ASEAN. So we have to recourse to the international community. And as Phil said, that the international community, the big players, can no longer hide behind the ASEAN skirt and do nothing. They have to come out on the forefront and join these Friends of Burma to push things forward. Unless and until Indonesian chairmanship could change the course a bit and take the rightful mantle of the ASEAN leadership as the biggest democratic Islamic country, as the founding member of ASEAN, and as a part of the tradition that ASEAN the Indonesian leadership, whether the president or especially the foreign ministers, had taken a very active role in solving the internal ASEAN crisis and placing ASEAN before the international radar screen. But for the past 2 years, ASEAN has been a sort of a self-destructing entity. It's about time that there will be a rebirth under the Indonesian leadership. Thank you.
So thank you, Ajahn Nadumon. Yeah.
I would like to add a little bit about the Thai authority. I think they misunderstanding. I think it's not only Thailand, but maybe several authorities try to see Myanmar from 1980 perspective. They misreading the situation on the ground in terms of analysis. They may think that it's supposed to be like of 1988, that you can control a certain leader. And we already see this is a failure of Min Aung Hlaing when it tried to pick up some certain leader of the ethnic group, and Thailand as well. When the Thai authority or the Thai military, they try to look at a certain person or a certain leader. But I think they miscalculate for the new generation. And I think the PDF factor is very interesting, and and is very crucial issue. And if we're looking at the situation on the ground, in Myanmar, either in Myanmar side or on the Thai side, the role of the young generation is very important. And when we talk about polarization, it's very strong. It's not about that the Min Aung Hlaing doesn't want to run the election, but it can't. I cannot expect how you can run the election when the people who even go to the school that the junta build or organize will not be able to speak to other people within the village. So the protest is in every township, every village. And even you're talking to the migrant worker who even work on Thailand, and if we're looking at the remittance that they send to support the people in their home country for revolution or for democratic struggle, is really strong. So it is impossible for you, and I hope that the Thai authorities should learn more. If they would like to do what you call more clever, I don't mind. You can be hypocrite. I do not have a problem, but you cannot just take only one side and hope that something will become better. And I do understand that the gas pipeline might be right now under PTTEP, but it doesn't answer the problem with the Thai economy. And you, miscalculate and misestimate. And I think it need to be rethinking about this.
Okay, thank you, Ajahn Nadumon. Let's come to the second part, no? What needs to be done and what we have to do in order to pressurize all the stakeholders or whatever.
Can I just add one thing? One very quick thing, which is that I don't know where the Friends of Myanmar or Friends of Burma is going to be constituted, but it has to be a coalition that is actually going to do something. The problem with the Friends of Myanmar or the Friends of Burma that existed under Ban Ki-moon was that it was too UN. It was too nice. It was like everybody gets invited, and then there was all these debates that they didn't get anywhere. What we need is an action coalition of like-minded states that are prepared to really push it.
Thank you. Yes, Ambassador.
One other point just for your kind information. I just 3 weeks ago, I did have a very informal, confidential one-to-one meeting with the newly appointed permanent secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. But I had been very frank with him and had suggested to him what to do now with Myanmar or the changing of the course of Thailand. I don't know how much he could push with his bosses and so on, but at least the message has been conveyed. And I think we have to keep on pushing our common cause to the political parties, parliamentarians, and also to the major Thai agencies such as the Ministry of Interior, the Police Authority, the Immigration, and especially the National Security Council Secretariat, and so on. And we have been trying for the past 2 years, not much progress, but I think we have been able to register our ideas, our concern, way out, and so on. What we need is a sort of a decision for action by various government, but we have to keep on trying, and we cannot give up, because I think the cause of the Myanmar youth revolution is much more important than any of our work and so on, and we must continue to give hope and continue to support their aspiration as much as possible. I think it's our common obligation. Thank you.
Thank you. What about our online speakers, Chris Sidoti and Chunlei? You have anything to add, especially the part of the recommendation? What need to be done? What will be the practical action that you really looking for? Chunlei, are you with us? Chris?
Thanks, Buntan. I think I've talked about the practical actions in the comments I made before, but perhaps to reiterate, the one thing that I strongly consider we should go away with this evening, is a commitment to taking up these issues with our own governments. I know that there are people in the room and people online who come from a large number of states in the regions, and it's our governments that need to be placed under greater pressure to be more supportive of the democracy movement and more opposed to the military. That's what I said before. So I'm just repeating myself, but I do so in response to your invitation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Debbie?
Practical? So many. I think we need to understand that economically it is in Thailand's interest to support the democracy movement. All this talk about fuel, the reliance on fuel from Burma, is actually going against the move away from fossil fuels. Let's not forget, Thailand is one of the most vulnerable countries to climate change. ASEAN actually has a policy of moving away from fossil fuels. And many environmentalists and energy experts have argued that Thailand actually has too much energy. They have too many sources of energy. They don't need to be paranoid about losing out on running out of petrol or any energy source. So I think this is something that we mustn't buy into. I think at this point, we do need to listen to what Chris and Tinza have said, which is this is the third year of revolution. This is the time that we really need to renew our resolve and our solidarity. And we need to understand 20 years ago, the struggle against the junta then was very much relied on the energy of the diaspora. And Thailand was one of the most important places for the diaspora movement to continue activating and continuing the struggle. So the situation in Thailand has changed in the past 20 years, and we need to do what we can to find that safe space, because if we can't find safe space for those working for human rights and democracy in Burma, who actually are working in Thailand's interest because they're working to strengthen human security in the region. If we don't find that space, Thailand, not only Burma, will be suffering. So I think we do need to look at that, but we also need to be aware one of the biggest sources of weapons and missiles and fighter jets is actually Russia. Yeah. It's actually very important for us to ensure that this junta is cut off from sources of where it's getting its weapons, whether it's Russia or China or even India, that it doesn't have access to revenue because the revenue is being used to fuel the war against people. Finally, that boils down. That's why we need sanctions against MOGE. That's why we need global sanctions on aviation fuel. And that's why we need global sanctions on weapons to the illegal junta. The former Indonesian Foreign Minister, Martinata Galewa, said in the past 24 hours to CNA, Channel News Asia, that the conflict in Myanmar represents an existential threat to ASEAN. It is indeed a threat, not just to ASEAN as an institution, but to the communities living in this region. And if we can't fix this, if we cannot address this, then we are screwed, because it's sending the message to all the pro-repressive regimes, those politicians, those generals living in our region. As long as we are not as bad as Myanmar, we can still have a coup. As long as we don't put 40% of the country into poverty overnight, we can still have a coup. As long as we don't dismantle and outlaw all the political parties, let some of them survive, and we have fake elections, we can still have a coup. And what does that mean for all of us?
Okay, thank you. Due to the limited time, I think we can have some, few comment or quick question for the audience. Any of you would like to raise some question or observation, so we can entertain a few of that? Yes, please. Please make it very brief. Huh? Thank you. This microphone, please.
So did you mention that there was a Canadian representative to the UN who was making moves?
Yes. I just heard it just a day or two ago. Carlos, yes. I can say that the Cambodian permanent rep to the UN, and I think he used to be on the human rights and all this, very active and so on. Carlos, can you tell us the name of the Canadian?
Bob something?
R-A-E.
Bob R-A-E. Thank you. Okay, that was it.
Thank you. Okay. Any other question or comment? If not, maybe we back to the speakers. Okay. Please.
Yeah, thank you so much for your words. My question was more on.
Who are you?
Sorry, I'm Elizabeth. I'm a part of the DTP program here in Thailand. And my question was about what are your thoughts of a possible hybrid ASEAN UN mission later on? Would this collaboration be something you see fruitful or a possibility? Thank you.
I can help to see Madame Hazel, the UN Secretary General Special Envoy for Myanmar. She has been non-existent for the past few months, although she has appointed myself as her honorary advisor, but I has not been seeing her. And APHR did try to have a Zoom meeting, also she did not. So I think there's some sort of failure on the part of the UN Special Envoy, and at the same time, the UN Secretary General seems to only know the word Ukraine and not Myanmar. So that's another problem at the highest level of the UN administration. And without him to keep on pounding at the UNSC or to have more, I think, discussion at the UNGA and the respective committees of the UN and so on, things will not move. And the UNHCR in KL, in Bangkok, or in Naypyidaw have also been non-existent. The excuse is that they don't get the instruction from New York, they don't get the green light from the Thai government, so they do bloody nothing. Sorry for the language.
Thank you so
Okay.
much. Thank you.
Thank you for this diplomatic answer. Okay. Any others? No? Then we give the chance to the speaker. Oh. Any? Any? Okay. Otherwise, we give the last message for the speakers if you want to say something at the final part of the day. Phil?
There it is. All right. Oh, no, here it comes. Look, I think it's very clear that if you look at the ASEANs, Thailand is the critical piece. It's critical piece because ASEAN has some degree of deference to Thailand because it has a long border with Myanmar. As we heard today from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, they said, well, we understand Myanmar better because we have this long border and we live right next to them. And all these other ASEANs are farther away, and so they don't understand. This is the sort of game that is played by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Thailand in trying to make excuses for a policy that is both immoral, unethical, and frankly, wrong-headed, because, it's going to result in a worse situation in Myanmar that is ultimately going to bring more problems and more issues across the border to Thailand. In failing to understand the nature of the ongoing conflict between the Myanmar military and the people of Myanmar, and throwing in with the Myanmar military, the Thai government is basically ensuring an ongoing recipe for instability that is going to send refugees, it's going to send drugs, and it's going to send problems across the border. It's very interesting that there was just a briefing that was done by the UN Office of Drugs and Crime over at the FCCT earlier this week, where they do an annual opium survey. And what they found was that there's been a huge surge in the amount of planting and harvesting of opium in Myanmar. Why? Because the situation is unstable, and people are using whatever they can to make money to preserve their autonomy and preserve their situation. It is a situation where where's that opium going to come? It's not going to China because China doesn't want it. It's going to come out through Thailand and go out through various different drug networks. And so what you end up with is a bigger drug problem beyond the methamphetamines, which Thailand is already concerned about, because of the instability in Myanmar. So, Thailand, because of a few wrong-headed policymakers, is pursuing a policy that is causing all sorts of problems for itself and the region. And we need to step up and basically persuade them that they need to change policy. Otherwise, we're not going to get anywhere with ASEAN centrality and ASEAN. And I don't think that the US and Europe and others are necessarily going to just sort of walk away from saying that ASEAN has to be part of the solution. They're going to continue to say that. So we have to reformulate the ASEAN response by changing the Thai response.
Thank you. Ajahn Narimon, please.
I think Thailand needs to have a clear humanitarian policy as a post-coup refugee. I mean, it cannot just, keep saying that the refugee just those in the camp 28 years ago. No, I think we already see the situation of the post-coup refugee, and it cannot just close their eye and allow people on the ground to make decision. I think it's not the best way. And I think even Thailand concerned about the economy, but the way they practice this way, it will cost them more in the long run. I mean, because rather than support, I mean, if they feel that they do not want to support, I mean, Thailand may think that it try to balance between, I mean, the junta and the people who come, but this balance is unstable. It's just like you build a house with, I mean, one side and it will collapse one way. So to do better balance, I think it need to put it, I mean, firmly that, okay, under the humanitarian policy, Thailand will strictly follow non-refoulement whatsoever, and this is a condition that they do. And in that case, I think the UNSCR or the UN want Thailand to say some kind of word because they want someone to be on the front word. I think Thailand may want UNSCR to speak first. I mean, believe me, they will never speak first. And I think this is what Thailand try to do. If it's too scary to say in that, you can talk to the Indonesian and come somewhere. And I think after the meeting with the Indonesian as a chair, I would like to propose the side meeting between, I mean, member of ASEAN state who are working on this issue separately. I mean, I don't mind for closed door meeting. And second thing, those countries who are invest in Myanmar, which is Singapore, China, Thailand, Vietnam, Japan, and I mean, so country you can this, I think that we can provide 10 countries who are invest in Thailand. They are ASEAN or ASEAN Plus. Just please talk and set something, because if you keep quiet, it will never change and it will never solve anything. Thank you.
Thank you. Ambassador, please.
Two sentences. The first sentence is, damn the Tatmadaw and long live the revolution. The second sentence is that to the NUG in particular, that they have to beef up the way they do things, make more present on the ground, and they have to have a face. And I would like to propose one of the lady minister to be the face of NUG and to provide the strong leadership. Somehow lately, I do believe that the world can be changed when the women take over the leadership of the world activities and so on. So message to NUG very, very strong that they got to beef up. Then they have to come out in a, I think, straight manner that the whole thing about Myanmar is inclusive. It will be a democratic federation. And at the same time, I think APHR in a few days' time will be meeting with members of the CRHP, the parliamentarian and so on. So we want to work with two levels, the NUG as the executive, and then we would work with the parliamentarian and so on, because that CPRH is bigger, broader, and it's inclusive of the minorities. Because we are a bit concerned that NUG listen too much to the NLD and Aung San Suu Kyi and not much to the minorities and so on. Carlos and myself, we have been meeting with many members of the Karen, the Karenni, the Shan, and so on. They have expressed concern that there is still that sort of the Burman majority mentality and belittling the minorities and so on. Myanmar cannot go on this way. Everyone has to be on equal footing, and the minority must be the full-fledged members of the new federation of Myanmar, a democratic one. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I just received a short message from our friend from NGT. He's now traveling Europe and have problem connecting to the internet. That is the Ong Myo Min, the Minister of Human Rights of the NGT. So he apologized that he couldn't join us today. But anyway, I think that's going on. Yes, Chris Dioti, you have any final message for the day? Okay. It's midnight time. Australia is 5 hours ahead of us. So Debbie then.
Mindful that there are so many young people here, we need to acknowledge that young people in the movement from Burma have been boycotting junta-controlled education and junta-controlled universities. So we have online universities and alternative revolutionary education, including Spring University, National Unity University of Myanmar. But more recently on the border, we saw also smaller ethnic groups setting up online classes for middle school and high school in their ethnic language. So please, while we are fighting this revolution, let's not forget there are many young people in Thailand, not just trying to improve their professional skills and their own political education to rebuild the country, but they are also providing these similar services to people inside the country. So everyone is doing something in this resistance. There's even a young woman so desperate to help in the movement that she went online and from YouTube started making drones to help the resistance keep civilians safe from attack. So, you know, this is something we talk about being inspired by young people. They, even in wartime, they find ways to resist. And we need to support also those peaceful resistors in what they're doing. So please, whatever you can do, please help. There's so many places that you can donate to your time or your money or your energy or your solidarity. This is the year we have to make this revolution win. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, the speakers. Now, actually, I try to sum up some key issues that we have been discussing in the last 2 hours. And of course, this is very brief, what we can really do. The first point regarding the renewal of our international solidarity to our friends, our brothers and sisters in Myanmar who are struggling and also involving in the revolution against the military junta. Secondly, the friends of Burma might need to be strengthened and also materialized, not just only among the government, but also among the civil society and people organization as well. Thirdly, regarding the sharp election which is going to be happen within the next couple of months or within the year. So we should be able to condemn all these sham election that it might not be able to redress or solve any problem at all if the root of conflict, root of problems still remain there. Fourthly, we have to force the royal Thai government in order to make a change of policies. In the meantime, the ASEAN to be reactivating and also renewing their commitment in order to make sure the 5-point consensus have been attended and pay more attention on that. Of course, including the role of the United Nations. The children look at the Ukraine as the only place that there are problems, but it's also Myanmar and many places always. The fifth point regarding the issue that raised by Debbie, we should address the question of the economic difficulties of the people in Myanmar, how it happened. People become impoverishment and poverty in difficult situation. How are we going to assist also into providing some sort of international humanitarian assistance or whatsoever? The last point perhaps related to the question, the global sanction on economics, which also providing the opportunity for the junta to grow up and become stronger. So some sort of the armed embargo is also needed in order to make sure that things have been in a good place in order to handle all the things. Yes, Ambassador, I think you have something to add on the point.
Just in follow up to Debbie, I am now working with a young lady, a Burmese, studying at Cornell University in New York. She comes from a well-to-do family, but she is setting up a sort of a foundation to finance Myanmar students inside Myanmar and at the border to go to the Thai universities. And I have been linking her up with some of the Thai universities like the Chiang Mai University for placement at the undergraduate school and so on. And second is, and my offer to you, to Debbie, that I'm excellent lecturer, so I would like to be a teacher for this online thing and so on. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Ambassador. And thank you for all the speakers. It's a pleasure to be with you all. No, I'm sure that we have going to have some comprehensive action altogether. So the final session, I return the floor to Ria. our
Thank you
host
very
of the
much,
day.
and thank you to all the speaker. Few announcements before you run out. There is coffee and some small food to enjoy while you continue the discussion. I think it's very important. There are many events today on Myanmar, including now at FCCT. Already there is another event. Also, there is an event with Sam, another event in the exhibition. Yes, I want to signal the exhibition that is outside, and there will be a second part starting on the 25th of February. So we will continue, and I think this is what I want to stress, that it's important to continue beyond the day of the anniversary of the coup. We need to keep it up every day as much as possible. On the 8th of February, we will have our friend Debbie starting again with, we have this bi-monthly update. No, actually it's monthly update. And she will be again our speaker for the next one on the 8th, right? We agreed on the 8th of February. So there will be many more activity related to Myanmar. So please continue to follow. And on your way out, please give a donation to support Junction activities, and including on Myanmar. We are focusing on Southeast Asia, so not only Myanmar, but for sure with a human rights perspective. Thank you very much, and see you to the next event.
So long live revolution in Burma.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, David.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.